Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Convicted killer appeals life sentence. Foreign minister criticizes opposition leader. Trump halts refugee resettlement, impacts TNT families. And internationally, Trump halts federal DEI programs. Now for the details. Convicted murderer Natasha De Leon is appealing a judge's refusal to review her life sentence for a 1993 murder. She's asking the appeal court to overturn her sentence and release her immediately. In January 2024, Justice Hayden St. Clair Douglas resentenced De Leon to 33 years for the murder of taxi driver Chandranath Maharaj, leaving her with just over 2 years to serve. De Leon is also challenging her life sentence for the manslaughter of another taxi driver, Lambert Duku. However, the judge ruled that reviewing that sentence is the role of the Mercy Committee, not the court. The Court of Appeal, led by Justice Gillian Luckey, reserved its ruling after arguments from both sides. This case could set legal precedents regarding life sentences and clemency reviews in Trinidad and Tobago. Foreign Affairs Minister Dr. Amory Brown has slammed opposition leader Kamala Persad-Bissessar for her comments praising Donald Trump while criticizing Joe Biden. Persad-Bissessar called Biden's administration a disaster and accused it of promoting divisive policies. Brown described her remarks as reckless and undiplomatic, warning they could harm Trinidad and Tobago's foreign relations. Speaking at the Red House, he urged Persad-Bissessar to rethink her tone and align with diplomatic norms. Other government officials, including Labour Minister Stephen McClatchy, also condemned her comments, labeling them undignified and politically unwise. President Donald Trump has suspended U.S. foreign assistance programs for 90 days, including refugee resettlement efforts. The decision leaves hundreds of refugees in limbo, including families in Trinidad and Tobago. The suspension, effective January 27th, halts a program established under the Biden administration that facilitated safe migration to the U.S. Venezuelan, Cuban, and Haitian refugees in Trinidad and Tobago are among those affected. Local refugee advocates, including the UNHCR and the Living Water community, are still analyzing the order's impact. Refugees with cancelled travel dates say they feel abandoned, as many had already sold possessions and left jobs in preparation for their move. The suspension comes as Trump also cancels other humanitarian initiatives, prompting widespread uncertainty for vulnerable migrants across the region. Internationally, President Donald Trump has ordered an immediate suspension of all federal diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, calling them immoral and divisive. Under a new executive order, all DEI staff must be placed on paid leave by the end of today, with plans to permanently shut down these offices within 60 days. Trump argues the programs undermine civil rights laws and promote discrimination rather than unity. The order also revokes a 1965 rule prohibiting federal contractors from hiring discrimination based on race, religion, or gender. Federal agencies have until January 31st to submit plans for layoffs. Critics warn the move could erode workplace diversity, while Trump says it fulfills his campaign promise to build a merit-based, colorblind society. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for watching.
WESN.
The TNT Chamber of Industry and Commerce published a survey that essentially told us something that, for the most part, if you have had your ear to the ground in any moderate way, you would already know. And that is, our forex situation is kind of bad. And by kind of bad, arguably one could say really bad. And by really bad, one could consider if this continues in the long term, as it has technically already been existing as a long-term ongoing problem, well, then we have to wonder exactly how much further will the negative impacts be and what new negative impacts might we see. Things like 62.2% of the 111, so we're talking about, you know, almost 70, between 60 and 70 businesses of those polled, they say they have delays in paying suppliers. 59.5 say they have declining profitability. I mean, one of the things that we wonder all the time is the preferential treatment. And then we look at the big businesses, like the warehouse shopping situation, right? Except the biggest one in the country, they and all said recently, we have Forex problems. Now, we have small and medium-sized enterprises especially struggling, which is something that politicians like to, you know, prop up and say, especially for SMEs, we're here to help them. And all of these lack of availability is leading to unregulated markets where the Forex is traded at a higher rate. And then it begs the question with regards to solutions, but hold that thought. One of the things we have to ask is, outside of the oil and gas sector, which to some extent they could do their business in foreign currency, right? To some extent. How do we expect to get foreign direct investment? Because right now, if you need to get your investment or your profits out of the country, you might not be able to. It might be difficult to near impossible to take out any substantial amount of money out of the country because you have to convert it from TT dollars to a foreign currency. That could be the reason why the private sector seemingly doesn't want to actually do anything new within TNT. People talk about foreign direct investment. What about local reinvestment? Because one of the things that I've lamented is the fact that we have a food security problem. One would think business models might be looked into with regards to how to break into food production, because you could potentially, if done right, bypass the need for foreign exchange. Is the foreign food cheap enough to undermine the profitability of local production? And perhaps the foreign exchange rate being controlled and set and maintained at 6.72 or whatever it is right now, 6.72, sorry. Maybe that's artificially keeping prices too low. Or maybe we just haven't had anyone willing to invest in food production at a scale necessary enough to realize some sort of competitive pricing. I mean, one of the things that I don't understand is, how is it that imported rum from Ghana, is it subsidized somehow that I don't know? How is it that imported rum from a CARICOM country is cheaper than our locally produced rum? And how to address the situation? A lot of the things that I've read, they're looking at more equitable distribution. Distribution, I think, is a red herring. That's not the real problem. The real problem is supply. And trying to wiggle, you know, move around the categories and play around with how we distribute, at the end of the day, there's demand higher than supply. We're going to continue to have this problem. Simple facts. If demand is outstripping supply, but you're keeping the price down, you're going to have shortages. That's just the way how things work. And this is a problem that's been happening since 2019, 2018, maybe even before. I know one small business that was stressing out about foreign exchange long before now. And why that's alarming is the consequences. Why do we think that, well, we're fine? You know, we've managed so far, we'll manage for longer. Why are we going to assume that? Because Minister of Finance said we didn't have the money for the VAT refunds. Think about it though, VAT refunds, not VAT grant, not giveaway, refunds. We didn't have the cash flow to give people back money that they technically paid in, so it would have come in as liquid cash or electronic cash, still liquid. But yet our cash flow was so bad, we weren't able to just send a portion of that back. And at the end of the day, it comes back to what can we do to reduce our import bill and increase our local productivity. Agriculture is one of the obvious things, agro-processing, maybe renewable energy as well, but that to some extent will still be relying on imports unless, and this is the big one, manufacturing. Now, this is the inconvenient truth. TNT is a nation of oil barons. I'm quoting one very learned and experienced gentleman from Tobago. It's a nation of oil barons. The garbage man with the expensive cell phone, he's an oil baron. The homeless man with a cell phone is an oil baron, because throughout the last however many decades, the foreign exchange afforded all of us a lifestyle that a lot of other countries maybe could not have afforded as easily as we did. And now, that's going to dry up. But the problem is, one of the things that goes with Dutch disease, are we a productive enough country to pivot and say, now we'll figure out how to really work hard? Not to say that there aren't hard workers in TNT, but as a society, we are not the hard-working people. We are the party, we jamming still till the sun goes down people. What are we known for? For liming, for free up, drink up. Think about it. What part of our culture speaks to work ethic? What is the saying or the stereotype of the good work ethic of Trimbagonians? Because if we want to do things like manufacturing, you know, unless we're going to try to automate everything, that's going to take a lot of capital. Are we going to have the people still to do that kind of work? The technicians, the managers, the project managers. Because it seems as though we have to start to look at building new industries almost from scratch outside of chicken production, which again, that could be expanded. But for whatever reason, we are fine with importing our inputs, importing our raw materials, and if necessary, importing our finished goods. And somehow we think this is sustainable. And I guess I can't fault the private sector for not wanting to take a chance in a country that is not geared for any sort of new endeavor that will be required in order to deal with this problem. So who's going to show the leadership? Who is going to guarantee the situation? Who is going to figure out the innovative strategy? Because at the end of the day, as much as the Chamber of Industry and Commerce is saying this, other business chambers, they said what I just said, how this has been going on long before COVID. This is nothing new. So I'm going to reiterate the point again. Do not assume that just because somehow we've managed so far, we will continue to manage moving forward, particularly when we don't know what the price of oil and gas is going to be within the next 4 years. We just know that the Americans intend to drill, baby, drill. And there's no part of their government that is in a position to stop that from happening. Now, a couple more things that I want to mention before we get to the daily review. First off, there have been some police shootings, but what is interesting in this case is it's not just police shootings, but it's police interdiction of crimes. Now, in one case, 3 of 5 suspects were shot in a gunfight with police following a robbery. It was at a grocery store. The cashier alerted the store owner, who contacted the police. A police patrol intercepted the robbers, got into a gunfight with them. I will right now give the police the benefit of the doubt that it was a reasonably good shoot. 3 of the individuals are wounded. They took them to, I believe, a hospital or a health center. They were pronounced dead. There were 2 other suspects. This, to some extent, the key point about this is not the police shooting and the people who died. The key point about it is a robbery was happening and the police patrol was able to respond to it in time. These things do happen. Yes, I know it doesn't seem to be the norm, but kudos to the police for responding in time. There was another incident where, and this one, a 22-year-old Laventil man was shot and killed by the police yesterday afternoon when they caught him attempting to assault another man with probably a cutlass. The report is a chopping incident. They got to the scene where the suspect was attacking the victim. The police is reported to have told him or ordered him to stop. He did not stop, so they shot him in the upper body. The victim is still alive and is currently getting medical attention. Again, this is one of those things where, and maybe this is the benefit of police being out in force, police and the defense force, but the police being out in force, because they could respond faster to things. Now the question is, can this sort of effort be maintained to some degree? Because, and the last thing I want to talk about is the fact that apparently prison officers have specific concerns with regards to reprisal attacks by gang members associated with inmates, including having bounties reportedly of up to $350,000 on the heads of certain prison officers. All this during a state of emergency, mind you, right? A state of emergency whose primary goal is to deal with violence. It's not a state of emergency because COVID-2 came out. It's not a state of emergency because we had a hurricane or a tsunami. It's not a state of emergency because we have political unrest. We have a state of emergency because of gang violence and gang reprisals, and in the middle of that, apparently we could stop the gangs from killing each other, but somehow it's a little bit harder to stop the gangs from going after prison officers. And the prison officers, one of the general secretary of the association, I believe, is basically saying, we're facing a new breed of prisoner. In the past, confiscating contraband didn't lead to consequences like this, but hey, $200,000 to $350,000 bounties. So another prison officer's house was shot up. The silver lining in this, and I say that with full sarcasm, well, not full, some sarcasm, is that this officer's home was shot up. It's reported 49mm shells were recovered. 9mm is basically pistol or submachine gun rounds. It has less penetrating power than the type of weapons we've seen used in mass shootings in the last couple of years, right? So, and potentially 14 9mm shells, 21 shots were fired in all reportedly. That could mean that they only attacked him with a pistol. This is the silver lining, that the level of firepower used in this attack wasn't as bad as it could be. Maybe it's because of the SOE causing the criminals to not want to bring out the big guns, but rather use more expendable weapons in these sorts of attacks. And also, I guess you could say the real silver lining is in these attacks on prison officers' homes, no prison officer or anybody else has been killed. But the fact of the matter is, this is not about what the prison officers are supposed to be doing or not doing, getting them more security. You could arm every single prison officer. If a criminal gang gets the jump on you, you're most likely going to die. That's how gangsters get killed. They have guns. The guns that a gangster has when he's a target does not make him immune to an ambush. So we could talk about security, and the real thing is this. When you have a less than 20% detection rate, at some point it was as low as under 10%, why are they going to be afraid from attacking law enforcement agents? And prison officers are law enforcement agents. Why? Why would the criminal element be in fear of any consequence when 9 out of 10 of them statistically get away scot-free? And this is a consequence not just of whatever might be going on in prison service, right? Which probably needs a commission of inquiry at this point. Let's just be frank. But the real issue is the fact that this is a consequence of the breakdown, as the Professor Shogunas and others would say, law and order. And it is probably only going to get worse. Let's not forget, a deputy commissioner of prisons was attacked. And again, luckily, only with a pistol, because if an AR-15, an AK-47, or anything between 5.56, 7.62, 6.88 that had automatic fire, that had 30-round clips or a drum magazine, was shot at that vehicle that his daughter was in, there's a very good chance that his driver and his daughter would have been dead, and he also, being out in the open, could have been dead. Somehow, despite the fact that we take him for granted, God is still a Trinity, at least for the most part. But at some point, he's going to say, hey, you're taking me in vain. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get into one of the stories in today's Daily Review. Stay tuned. This is Talking About the WSN. We'll be right back after this.
SM Group International Limited, your solutions partner for the latest innovations, brands and competent staff to meet your needs. We provide products and services in the following divisions: executive services, event rental and services, power and heavy equipment, construction and property management, food and beverage, aggregate and sales and distribution. Check out more on our products and services at www.smgrouptt.com. Contact us at 221-7445 or email at info@smgrouptt.com. We are SM Group International, your solutions partner.
All right, one of the stories that I have to get into, because I didn't get to it yesterday, was the whole situation with regards to the missing file and the reports with regards to why the file disappeared, as the AG said. And, well, there will be no disciplinary action or criminal investigation into the matter. Now, one of the key things to remember is the award ordered, the award was ordered by the judge on January 30th, 2023. Keep that in mind. Now, I won't go into the whole timeline of the events, but this thing started from 2020 June, right? They got the file. Then the file disappeared sometime around June 22nd, 2020, right? It was recorded in the incoming register, but it was missing. Now, there was no recorded activity to the file between 2020 June and August 2021, except via emails from the chief state solicitor. Now, apparently they got aware of a situation with regards to this case of this matter on the 6th of July 2021. Then in August 2021, the chief state, no, one of the one of the people working in the Solicitor General office, requested the file but was informed that it couldn't be located. So then, still in August 2021, the file was found on the desk of then Deputy Solicitor General Duncan Byram, who died. So it was found in August 19th, according to report 2021. Payout was in 2023, January. So August of 21, Hernandez was informed that the file had been located on the desk. And then, I don't know why, but in 2022, a temporary file was reconstituted reportedly. And then the whole situation, the assessment was here before for Master Martha Alexander, the 4th of November, at the hearing, quoted submissions from attorneys. But it seems as though the Solicitor General's office went into the situation, for whatever reason, still not prepared enough, and we got that, I believe it was a default judgment, right? And again, the report stated 2023 was when the award was given. The matter was between 2020 and end of 2022, essentially. They could have, the report stated, they could have gotten all of the documents, soft copies, from the High Court registry because they were all filed electronically. No attempt, no requests were made, ever made by the Office of the Solicitor General. And a lot of these things coming out from the report comes, this is some of the phrases: lack of initiative, ineptitude and incompetence. COVID-19 was around this time, but it's not an excuse. Why was the file put in an office that was not utilized, empty, just randomly forgot there? There was a whole set of other things apparently that was received around that time. The acting Solicitor General apparently is criticized for having a nonchalant approach to the matter, even when it appeared that the court would provide a substantial $20 million for 9 men reward. And they have a whole host of, this is the conclusion. The entire Sorry episode is another clarion cry for an overhaul of the internal systems of the Office of the Solicitor General and the Chief State Solicitor. Here's the thing though. I can understand if there's not enough evidence for a criminal matter to come from this, even though the report is basically implying somebody purposefully put the file in that office to hide it there, even though that allegedly, based on the report, it was found in 21. So I don't know why it was not available to be used between 21 and 22. I don't know if there are things missing in the report. But why no disciplinary action when you're throwing out things like ineptitude, lack of initiative? No one is going to be held accountable. Usually when you mess up, and the word I would like to use is not mess. It begins with F. In the private sector at the very least, and lesser mistakes in government service, at least that are aired in the public, that are such a public spectacle, should lead to serious consequences. We didn't have enough money to pay out the VAT refunds, but we have to find $20 million to pay these guys, apparently. Yes, you could change the things in the office and you could change the processes, but if the people who didn't do their job properly, and you need to come and give us a good explanation to say that they did do their job properly for us to accept it, right? We're not just going to assume. If you don't show consequence to this sort of thing, but why are we surprised? Look at what went on with the board in Paria. There's no consequence there for anybody involved, right? And when you don't show consequence, people are going to continue to do as they do. It's the same thing. Why do you think they have gangsters targeting prison officers now? Because there's no consequence for attempted murder or murder in this country anymore. So ironically, this is the interesting thing. The person that comes out looking the worst in this situation, as pointed out by Anna Ram Logan, is the Attorney General himself. So this is what confuses me. Is it that Mr. Reginald Moore, this is it? He's been Attorney General, and once this is over, he's done? Because again, it seems as though he can't handle a public office. Based on how he handles himself, case in point Miami, and how he handles with the job functions of his office. Maybe it's best if he doesn't come back. Maybe he doesn't want to come back. Maybe he himself knows he's ill-suited and he was kind of pressured to do the job, and it is what it is, right? But I don't get it. How are we supposed to have confidence in the system when such basic things could happen like this? And there's probably more that we are not being told that may or may not be in the report. Because we've reached a point now where the goodwill of the people when it comes to what we're being told by politicians is being used up. And there's less and less goodwill. And that is primarily a function of communication and framing and formatting and style and all of that. Knowing how to speak to people, to tell us what's going on so that we could have confidence and believe in you. That is unfortunately lacking in 2025. And it has been for quite some time. And it's not just the PNM's fault, but more often than not, they're in charge, so. But hey, it's fine. Let's take a break. When we come back, my colleague will be joining me. We'll switch gears slightly, still on politics. Stay tuned. This is Talking About on WSN. We'll be right back after this.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust. Prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today. Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, Vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
I'm back here and talking about the WSND Content Capital Show. Michael Small, joined by the Shah of AM Prime. Technically the Shah of Talking Point, but like the absent Shah of Talking Point. Shah of WSN. He is, of course, Mr. Keaton Shah. Mr. Keaton Shah!
Good morning, Sean. How are you doing?
I don't know, you know. I'm just wondering how bad things are going to get. And, you know, put on a happy face, you know. Yeah, it's just one of those days.
You're wondering how bad things are going to get? In what context are you speaking of?
Well, actually, both how bad is the targeting by criminals on agents of the state and the forex situation. I did speak about that earlier. We could potentially get into that. But there was one topic that you immediately said you want to talk about today, which I am interested to hear what you have to say. I have no idea if you're going to agree with me, disagree with me, if we're going to be able to compromise, or if we're going to be very divergent. But It's about the whole situation with the opposition leader's statements on the outgoing Biden administration, if I believe that's what you wanted to talk about.
What was your opinion on it?
My opinion was, for the most part, with maybe one or two details, her criticisms of extreme left ideology was correct. And I can't say that the Biden administration was not a disaster. So since I can't say that the Biden administration was not a disaster, I kind of have to agree with the content of what she said. But I admit it didn't necessarily bother me. But if you want to say it was undiplomatic, sure. Right? To some extent, you could even go and say it was unnecessary, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it was untrue. There was one or two minor things that I disagreed with, right? Because those situations are more complex. So I don't know if we get into the details, if I'll agree with her on all the details or not. But there was one or two generalities I disagree with. But for the most part, it was what it was to me. And I guess I'm looking at it from a lens where this is not something new to me. So I was more focused on the content and not so much on whether she should have said it or not.
I think the opposition leader has a right to express her opinion on a number of matters. I don't think it is wrong to put forward your thoughts. I think the principle of it's not what you say, but how you say it is something that she seems to have misunderstood or disregarded completely. Because I'm not against the opposition leader's position. What I'm against is the fact that an individual who is striving to be the Prime Minister of Tobago, the next Prime Minister of Tobago, does not seem to fully understand the concept of diplomacy. Now, the opposition leader, there are two parts to this. One, the opposition leader has nothing to be concerned of when it comes to a Joe Biden administration anymore. So she has nothing to lose given her commentary. However, she does risk a relationship or a potential relationship with the Democratic Party of the United States if ever they were to come back in power whilst Kamala Persad-Bissessar is ever to become Prime Minister of Tobago. That's one aspect. So because she has nothing to lose, she clearly went all out. The second aspect of this is it is also to a certain degree, and this is how I interpreted it, setting a path for her position or for her stating what her relationship would be with the current U.S. administration if she were to be the next Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. So she did that to a certain extent. I could also interpret it as her being not necessarily critical, but laughing rather at, quite honestly, this administration in Tobago banking heavily, gambling heavily on its relationship with the Democratic Party of the United States. That's another aspect of it. But as I said, it's not what you say, it's how you see it. Diplomacy is absolutely important, and to come out and say that it was an absolute disaster. As you said, we're not in a position to say it was not an absolute disaster, but we also should, again, one thing that studying political science has taught me is you always have to try and take a diplomatic route. You are very much free to express your opinion, but you also do it in a way that could not be deemed as offensive. You can be critical and you can disagree, but there's no need to be offensive. And I think the opposition leader is losing her senses when it comes to diplomacy. I'm not speaking about this just as an example, but generally. I mean, to add to that, she doubled down on it. Okay, fair enough. You doubling down, you're standing by your point. But what intrigued me the most is that this is an opposition leader that was full of praise for Joe Biden and his administration, full of praise for Joe Biden and his administration when he entered office, saying that we look forward to the progress, we look forward to the relationship. It means opportunity following a Trump presidency which divided the United States and divided the world. So go back to what the opposition leader said 4 years ago. And again, 4 years have passed. We've seen what Joe Biden has delivered. We've seen the outcome of the election. I understand all of that. But again, 4 years ago, you were quite diplomatic in your
Well,
position.
well,
You can be that way again.
yeah, but
Uh,
but 4 years ago, we didn't know what the results would be. So to some extent now, she has the benefit of hindsight. So I'm not
This
going to
is
hold
where
that
I'm
against
saying
her.
4 years ago, you expressed yourself diplomatically. We have seen the results of the Joe Biden administration. We've seen the results of the election. You can still express your opinion, but
Well,
there is a way that you should do it or could do it.
Keaton, consider this. Because our Minister of Foreign Affairs was concerned that such undiplomatic utterances in and of itself would be a disaster, right? Except the thing is, she's not speaking about the current administration negatively. She's speaking about the outgoing one, which I don't think there's any love lost given how American politics have gone. That's point number one. Point number two, the election basically showed a clear mandate rejecting that, right? So are we going to be pissing off the majority of the American people? I don't know if you can make that argument. And then point number three, we've seen how the current American administration was going to be even before the inauguration with regards to the ceasefire in the Middle East. One could argue a more direct and blunt and not as diplomatic approach might be just as well received by the current administration in Washington as a diplomatic approach would have been received under a more conventional, to put it very lightly, administration. Because this is the thing, who are we afraid of pissing off over this? This is the one thing that I don't understand. I understand where you're coming from, where technically it's not diplomatic. But to some extent, I'm not saying that the opposition leader is a genius for doing this. I just think she's speaking the language that the man in the White House might understand.
I do not disagree with you in respect to being concerned or rather afraid of whom we piss off with this sort of tone on the part of the opposition leader. I don't think it's a matter of fear. For me personally, it's a matter of concern that this is an individual, should they become prime minister, what is their diplomacy? What is their diplomatic position? Is it that you are wanting to please the United States rather than take a position of neutrality, or even wanting to be so extreme in stating your wanting to cooperate with the United States that you may also forsake risking your diplomatic relationship with other nations? What is and this is my concern. So it's not a matter of necessarily trying to piss off the administration or the majority of the Americans following that election race. It's a matter of what is the practices, or what are the practices of the opposition leader, and do those practices, does that behavior, does that language remain the same should she enter office? To me, that is rather concerning. Now, the other aspect of it is, again, not fully disagreeing with what the opposition leader stated, stressing the point that it's how you see it. There's been defense on the part of members of the opposition, or individuals who were members of the opposition. There was Joel D'Souza, who actually defended the opposition leader. But if you read, according to the reports, what her defense was, she did not defend the comments on the part of the opposition leader, but she defended certain tenets or certain points that the opposition leader raised when she doubled down on her position. So that in itself says a lot. It says that, okay, there's certain things I agree with, but I'm sorry, I don't think I agree with how it was stated. If I take a look at Barry Patterath, and I'm pointing out these examples given the extreme leftist woke agenda that was in the statement, this is an opposition leader who, up until last year, I think it was October, said, we want to create an environment that is inclusive for all. We will work together with the LGBTQ community. This is the thing. You're stating these things just a couple months ago, and then now you've kind of made statements putting everything up in the air. Barry
Well,
Carter defending the comments, saying that the Joe Biden administration was a disaster, but did not defend the tenants when the opposition needed a double down. And these are the things that I'm pointing out. You had Nicholas Morris. And his position, I was confused as per his position. You're defending the opposition leader, but you're trying to be very subtle in your defense. It had me a bit confused, and it had me. Was he just singing for his support for his position and having no choice to defend the opposition leader? Was that the same thing with Jalen John? That has me a bit concerned, because what is the diplomacy, or what is the diplomatic policies that we can expect? And I think these are things that need to be made clearer.
So
Again, I understand that because the Trump administration is in the office, and because of the nature of Donald Trump and the current grand old party, GOP, I understand that you have to try and forge relationships from now. But there are certain ways to do it. You're making the comments, you're making the defense. That's probably the language that Donald Trump understands. I don't think that's the language that we need to adopt. And that is just my opinion. That is just my position. I actually wonder whether or not this was even the opposition leader who this is her genuine beliefs. If this is what she stated and this is what she expressed herself, or if somebody in the party, because it seems as though an individual like Philip Edward Alexander has become the PRO for the party, and the kind of super ignorant, disgusting commentary coming from him, and his behavior, his attitude, and his language, which I don't want from any politician. Any politician, I don't care. I don't want that at all, right? He makes an idiot of himself sometimes, and he's not the kind of person that you want leading a nation. I wonder if he wrote that. And I wonder if the opposition leader put her signature on it. Because my next thing would be to challenge the opposition leader to stand up on a platform and to speak about these policies that she's put her signature to, and speak about them a bit further, elaborate a bit further. Could she do that? So I'm wondering whether or not this is her genuine position, or if she just put her name, she's just signed it and rubber stamped it because somebody else wrote it for her. Because it's a complete 360 as compared to what she was stating a couple months ago.
Hold on.
But as I said, time will tell.
And this is the thing, not necessarily. This is the problem. Now, first I'll say this. I don't think we're going to suffer any consequences for the statement, but I actually do agree with you on the fact that, look, at the end of the day, we do need to be a bit more proficient in our diplomacy and not just shoot from the hip, because we are not them. We are not them. That's point number one. And number two, to some extent, you don't necessarily want to be like that, right? With regards to being overly aggressive and brash. Now, with that said, usually these kind of debates, they don't go into details. All you have to do is say, I agree with one small part of what someone says, and a lot of the extremism in the conversations will just assume that you automatically are 100% for that side, whichever side it is. Usually that's the extreme left taking that position in first world countries. Now, with that said, the thing is, Joel D'Souza actually did go a bit in detail. She pointed out the disaster, and the report says that she cited concerns including biological men using women's restrooms. This is a trans person saying this, and it's not the only trans person that I have heard speak on this issue in that manner from this position. Drag shows in schools, that has happened, and we're not talking about high schools or even middle schools. We're talking about what we would consider primary schools. Gender pronouns and children being allowed to undergo gender reassignment surgery. That's another big thing, because to some extent that has some long-term sexual reproductive health implications for the children if you let them do it before they go through adolescence. That's a whole kettle-kabottle of medical what have you. The thing is, what she was pointing to, and I agree with you, I actually don't expect her to be well-versed on the details of these issues as they have been debated for the last 9 to 10 years, right? I don't expect her to be well-versed on it. It could very well be a statement that she You know, she might have gotten the gist of it. She might have gotten the basic explanations of what woke is, right? But to say that she could command and has a commanding knowledge of the issue, I don't expect that. But at least on the surface, what she said now does not contradict what she said in the past, because there are people who are LGBTQ who are saying some of the same things, not just this one person that's connected to the UNC and TNT, but we're talking about online media in the States, activists, and media personalities, what have you, spokespersons, what have you, from the LGBTQ community that have said some of these very same things. So that's where it gets confusing, because usually the debate doesn't go into the details, and one of the things that I would say I probably wish that Kamala Persad-Bissessar didn't enter into this situation is because I suspect she doesn't have the capacity to kind of maintain this debate in the long term, to go deep into it, to fully explain the positions and why it is the way it is, etc., etc. So then she probably would not be.
The opposition leader even wrote
right.
this statement.
She would probably be not the best person to start this whole kettle caboodle off.
But as I said, Sean, at the beginning of my response, and I will say this again, the opposition leader has every right to express her opinion. Again, there's nothing against that. As far as I'm concerned, I have not stated that I disagree with what the opposition leader has put on the table. My disagreement, and I think it's quite unfortunate, it's how you express it. It's the words you use. It's how you have chosen to go about forging your relationship or trying to forge a relationship with the current administration of the United States of America. And whilst I understand that developing countries in particular will have to take a position in finding avenues to work with this administration, because on the basis of it, developing nations are going to get affected by Trump presidency. We have no, that's at this point, we know that's going to happen. I am simply stating that you cannot, you to a certain degree, you are pointing out the investment or the faith bestowed in the Democratic Party by the current People's National Movement, and you're to a certain extent you're chastising that. But then at the same time, you're basically doing the same thing by throwing all your eggs in the basket of this current Trump administration. The election in the United States is long gone. There was a clear winner, and the thing is, I've said it before, Trump may be the best thing for the United States of America right now. He may be the best thing for the United States of America, because I, too, was very frustrated by the Biden administration's response to a number of issues. So again, I've expressed that, but you don't see me going out of my way to even in our conversations, our debates when it comes to internal politics, domestic politics, I try my very best to be as diplomatic as possible, because at the end of the day, it's a matter of how you approach things, how you're willing or wanting to approach things. You're not trying to be soft. You're not trying to be a walkover, and you're not trying to allow people to get away with things. But I will never lower myself to their standards or to their attitudes.
And I'll agree with that, because Mr. Trump is like, I say he's a sledgehammer. That's what they want to deal with some of these issues. His administration is going to be like a sledgehammer. I don't think that is going to work for us, right? To your point. That might work for them because they have a mandate. I don't expect that to work for us unless something very wacky happens in the election, right? And the public gives a does something that is unexpected in the vote. Now, with that said, I do want to ask you this, Keaton. I do want to ask you this. Dr. Emery Brown's response, any concern, not that I think it will happen, but like I think there's a minor possibility that perhaps the Trump administration would have taken note of his response and basically say, well, you didn't think Biden was a disaster? And this is actually kind of what I said about left-wing ideologues that could happen here. They themselves might be, well, if you're supporting Biden, you're against us. So what's going on? They might assume an issue that doesn't necessarily have to take place, because not that he used strong language against Trump, right? But he used strong language to push back against criticism of Trump's political opponent?
I don't think he was in defense of. I'm looking at his response. I don't think he was necessarily in defense of Joe Biden's administration. I think he was more so critical of the opposition leader's approach. Bear in mind one thing. Generally speaking, we have adopted a non-interventionist approach when it comes to other nations' politics. That's what we've done. And once the opposition leader is not necessarily intervening, she's taken a very hard line, which brings me to another point. Sean, we've questioned before, what exactly is the political ideology of our parties in Trinidad and Tobago? Did we just get a hint of the political ideology that the United National Congress is now adopting? But coming back to Senator Amy Brown and Minister Amy Brown's response, it is going to be something that they're going to have to try and work out, bearing in mind that the last ambassador to Trinidad and Tobago under the Trump administration did not have the greatest of relationships with the People's National Movement administration.
Yeah.
You know, so there's history there as well, and that's something possibly that Donald Trump is going to bear in mind as well, and that's why I'm saying you have to understand that the opposition leader is being critical of the investment as well in the Democratic Party that has been made. So it's going to be very difficult to navigate. But in my opinion, I think Dr. Amy Brown is at this point the best person, the right person to try and navigate that relationship. I'm being quite honest with you. I have a lot of faith in him, and I think he's, as I've stated it previously, I think he's one of the better politicians and somebody whom I think has the tact to try and actually navigate quite it's going to be difficult. Let's be real, it's going to be difficult given the history.
Actually,
but it's something that at this point is inevitable, Sean. It's inevitable. You have no choice but to deal with it.
The thing is, like I said, I don't think we're going to face any consequences for it, right? That was, I guess,
I don't think so.
an academic or intellectual question. And I agree with you. Even if it is viewed somewhat negatively, I still would think that he is the best person to try to handle TNT's diplomacy with the United States. Here's the thing, though. A couple of things. One of the reasons why I'm saying maybe Kamala should not have brought this up is a lot of these issues we're not ready for debate, in part because they haven't come up yet. They haven't been issues locally yet. So to say that we're going to debate certain issues that doesn't organically exist here, that kind of doesn't make sense, right? But the other thing is this, though. We want, well, this administration at least, I don't know what the UNC's plans for this. Maybe they want it, maybe they don't. One would assume TNT wants the Dragon deal to go through. And this is an American president that mentioned, at least to some extent, his stance on Venezuela, not necessarily with regards to our deal and our OFAC license. Hours into his presidency, he brought up Venezuela, or he was willing to respond about Venezuela with regards to their oil purchases with Venezuela. So this is one of those complicated things where we're not assuming it's going to be a layup, it's going to be easy, and more importantly, I think it's very difficult to convince anybody, or Trump will just kind of do business as usual. Yeah, we need the deal. He'll give us the deal, because why wouldn't he give us the deal? If he wants to shut down Maduro as much as possible, we might be collateral damage. And American first means, I don't know how far our cries of help us, how far they're going to go.
John, in relation to, bring it back to what the opposition leader stated. I said 3 points earlier in relation to it's not what you say, it's how you say it. It's calling out the People's National Movement administration for their investment. I also indicated that it's hinting at the relationship that you're wanting to have or hoping to have should you become prime minister. I think it's also very much a political move on the part of the opposition leader to appeal to the religious fabric of society in Trinidad and Tobago. Remember, we still have a very much heavily invested religious part of society in Trinidad and Tobago. And a lot of people, let's face it, would be very frustrated with what took place in the United States. So she's made that appeal to them, and that's what I'm saying. Is it a
Ah,
hint at ideology? It's a political move as well.
that's a good point.
You know, we're trying to get the support of the religious fabric of society. That's one aspect. Because if you listen to IRO leaders, they
Yeah.
indicated that they are hoping that Donald Trump could actually bring back some sort of religious ideology to society. It seems as though that has been lost, and it's something that was pushed under the Joe Biden administration. It's that aspect as well that the opposition leader has stated these claims. But you have to also understand what the opposition. I think the opposition leader could have been congratulatory of Donald Trump, saying we look forward to this. It's unfortunate what transpired in the last 4 years, and we disagree with quite a number of policies. But thank you for Joe Biden for his service. End of story. Whatever. As I said, I am displeased with a lot of what Joe Biden did as well. But you could have simply left it at that. Congratulations, Donald Trump. We look forward to that relationship, etc., etc. Blah 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 blah. So and so. Cool. Excellent. Great. It's done. That is where you could have left it. But what she has done is she's also created another distraction. I want to hear from the opposition leader speaking about and going deeper and delving deeper into our foreign exchange situation, Tobago. I wanted to be concentrating on that. I wanted to be calling out the Minister of Finance because he's been very silent in recent times, probably sitting on planning what goodies we can get in the mid-year budget review. I wanted to speak about her plans as it relates to generating foreign exchange revenues because the unfortunate thing is Dr. Kirknew says we do that. You know, we do that at our Monday night report. That clearly isn't focused enough on.
No.
That clearly has not been a strong point of the opposition. I want them to focus on issues of economics. I want them to focus on issues of schools across Tobago and the state of schools and the state of our education system in Tobago. I want them to focus on the fact that there are so many simple issues, basic issues in Tobago. Look at this thing with property tax. You just need to be on the game. You have an election coming up. Speak about your positions. Speak about what policies you have. Don't tell me that this is your intention, this is your plan. I want to know how you're going to get there. Because it's easy to stand on a platform and say, well, we are going to promise a laptop for every child in Tobago. How are you going to afford that? What are you going to do to generate revenue for Tobago? These are the things that the opposition leader needs to do. It's a time in Tobago that is very much ideal for them to delve deeper into the works of this particular administration, the PNM administration, to share information with the public, to share your solutions and how you're going to be different and what you're going to do different. But no, this has just unfortunately overshadowed, really, what should be an opposition campaign, and a strong opposition campaign as that, but clearly they don't have that tact.
The thing is, I've said before, I do think the PNM is akin to the Democratic Party, not the current iteration, which is probably seeing its last legs because of how badly they lost, right? But I'm talking like maybe during Obama's time and before. And the UNC, like, with regards to political ideology, seemingly is a bit more like the Republican Party in the traditional sense, not in the current version, right? But in the just conservative, how you deal with economics, how you deal with those sorts of things, right? And of course, I didn't consider it, but you might be right. She might have been trying to appeal to the people that that struck that chord with regards to the American election situation, and that might be part of their strategy. But I think you're right. One of the things that frustrates me is politicians would say, we have plans, but dare I ask, Keaton, has any political party really given you enough detail to say, hey, they actually have a plan? Usually what it seems to me to be like is they have an intention, they have an idea, they have a promise that is a pie in the sky. But to say that they're actually going to spell out how we're going to do it, usually what do they say? Well, it's not my job to, the other side might steal my idea, or I'm not in government, so it's not my job to. Why not? Why is it not your idea to start planning from now? Because do we want to take half of your term just to try to figure out where to start? Then how are you going to implement any meaningful change? Keaton, when I hear about the UNC's Monday night forums, half the time the ideas given there are so shallow, they're not good enough for me to confidently say, yes, this idea is a good idea or not.
Sorry, I was muted there. That's exactly the point where I'm saying, okay, to try and be diplomatic, do you really think that I would want to waste my time debating or having a conversation about the opposition leader rubber stamping a statement that she probably couldn't write or put together herself, or can't even stand up on a platform and elaborate on without having a piece of paper in front of her? You know, you think that I want to waste my time on these things? You think that it is worthy? Because I come on Talking Point, it's supposed to be twice a week. In the last 2 weeks, it's been once. But you think my 1 hour designated to me on? You think I want to be waste? No, but these are things that have to be addressed, and it's to point out the deficiencies in the opposition leader because you are so. Listen, this administration and the People's National Movement has been the furthest thing from good. There is you're going to make the argument that there's some stability because we're keeping our heads above the water. Only just, but it has not been healthy for Trinidad and Tobago. It's been 10 years, and you need to tell me that you still cannot give me ideas, policies. You need to tell me that the last time I interviewed a member of the opposition who is a shadow minister, that they pulled out the manifesto from 2010 to preach to me. 2010 is not 2025. 2010 is not 2025.
The economy was different then.
Dynamics, the economics, not just of Trinidad and Tobago, globally have changed.
Yeah, yeah.
So these are things that you need to be focusing on. But you know, Sean, I think what it is, the individuals who currently make up the opposition party don't have one clue. They don't have an idea. I think they enjoy being in opposition and the perks that come with being in opposition. And as I said, and I'll say it again, a refreshed, invigorated PNM is a dangerous thing for other political parties. And that is the one thing that I will say positive about the PNM is that they know when internally they need to evolve. Their policies, their politics, their practices may be the same. They may be the same, but the mere fact that they have new faces or new individuals, that alone inspires a sense of hope for their supporters. So again, Sean, the opposite. We have to. I say we have to waste our time on this because it's things that need to be addressed. This is important.
Yeah.
This is very, very important. And as I said, Philip Edward Alexander seems to have become the mouthpiece for the United National Congress. As I said, PEP stands for Philip Edwards Party. But in doing so, the kind of nonsense that he is spewing, the kind of hate, the anger, the language he's using, the tones. I wonder if he wrote this and the opposition leader just rubber stamped it. I wonder if that is the case. I don't think they have much of a clue, Sean. I don't think they have much of a clue, and that's why we can't get a decent campaign from them. They are relying so heavily on the shortfalls of the People's National Movement and the frustrations that citizens have in hoping that these individuals vote for them. They're not an alternative, they're just an exchange. I just swapping one color for another, it would seem.
Well, I mean, what you just said there with regards to revamp PNM party implies that they run the risk of being seen as not even an equivalent exchange. I'll say this, I actually don't think Philip Edward Alexander wrote this. He is a man of the local environment. I will not make the assumption.
I wonder if he wrote it. I never did.
Yeah,
He did.
I have a hard time coming to that conclusion because to say that he would be that well versed in this sort of stuff, I don't think so. I could be wrong, but I think it might be someone younger within the UNC, maybe even a staffer, someone that works in their public relations or their speech writing. I don't necessarily think it's him or anyone senior, particularly of our older generation within the United National Congress, because these issues are not necessarily organic to TNT. A lot of them haven't come up yet, right? With regards to drag shows in schools, a lot of these things have not come up yet. So to bring them now, maybe somebody just did research and they're kind of speaking to what they know after a couple hours on the internet alone. But yeah, to some extent, you're right. This is a bit of a distraction. What we're going to do, we're going to take a very quick break. When we come back, we'll open phone lines, and maybe you could squeeze in some talk with regards to the foreign exchange situation with Keaton, because that's also something you wanted to talk about. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after this.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
All right, we open the phone lines right now, but I wanted to at least kick off this conversation. Maybe we'll continue next week with Mr. Keaton Shah. That is our foreign exchange situation, and we started it off air actually, and I'll go to where I started. Keaton, I think our lack of forex is directly making it difficult for us to get foreign direct investment and local reinvestment, because people can't, if you put your money in TNT, basically, it seems as though it's going to be trapped in TNT. So why would you do that? A lot of our local big conglomerates, they're investing where? In Miami, in parts of the state, supermarkets abroad, business ventures across the Caribbean. Not here, right? Not here. And one could argue, oh, that's a way for them to do foreign exchange. It's also a way so that their money is not potentially going to be trapped. Because, yeah, they probably could get some foreign exchange. They can't necessarily recoup all the investment. And then foreign direct investment now, how are they going to get their profits out?
So you think, like when you say you think, you're just thinking that this is exactly, it's exactly what you're saying. It is. It's not. Don't think it is.
Okay, all right. It's use of language, Keaton. It's use of language. I'm not going to say an absolute. I don't have data. It's just the theory says this is what is the practical most likely to happen.
If you were to invest into Transvago, if you had enough capital to invest in a country, and you look at Transvago, what would you be investing in right now?
Yeah.
In Transvago in particular.
But also, Keaton, you made up a good point. We do have a call, but I just wanted to say a point. Where will the investment dollars really be going right now? What economy is going to be open for business?
Should we take the call? I'm sorry, we asked that question.
You mentioned the United States is probably going to be a great...
Oh, yes, yeah, because Trump is good for business. Yeah.
Basically.
There's going to be investment.
Right?
Trump is good for business.
We have a call, I think. Is it Diego Martin on the line? Just a caller? Okay. Caller, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Yeah. Good morning.
Yeah, just to commend the reason for
Caller, you're very soft. I don't know if it's on our end, but can you speak loud into the phone?
My concern is about the comments made by the opposition leader recently. I think that she is living in a fantasy world. I think that she is of the belief that she is already in government, and she is just looking to take an opportunity to occupy a place on the international stage. With one thing in mind, as I said, being in a fantasy world, she sees herself as Prime Minister already. In the case of Barry Padarat and Philip Alexander, with regards who are seeking to make an input into this imbroglio, they live in a fantasy island. Because the first thing that they need to do is to secure victory at the polls in Trinidad and Tobago before you could want to put your mouth or hand in any foot in any international scenario. And they are not doing what they are supposed to do. They are believing, I think Ethan said it a while ago, that it is possible that they are looking at winning the elections on the basis of the fault or the weaknesses of the PNM. And this was clearly borne out by the results of the Princess Tongue election recently, where Mr. Barry Padarat and Jillian John and the MP for Baruga Taylor took full responsibility, having lost an election by one vote, which necessitated a repeat or a rerun. They lost by 600 and something votes in the repeat of the elections. So I think that they need to understand what they need to do to secure victory at the local election, local polls, before they dabble into the national politics. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. We have another caller.
Thank you, caller.
Maraval on the line. Good morning, caller. You on the air? We might have lost Maraval. All right. Keaton, something that I've been started thinking of interestingly enough, because he pointed out when they had the re-election for that one seat that was too close to call, the number of PNM voters increased. Here's the thing, I wonder, because we look and say, oh, well, the UNC wins the popular vote, but they don't win the electoral college system, right? Well, here's the thing, maybe that's because a lot of PNM voters take it for granted, this seat's safe, that seat's safe, we don't need to vote. And if the situation gets more contested, more PNM supporters might show up. I don't know. And to some extent, the UNC needs to be aware of the fact that, look, there might be voters waiting in the wings who might come out to the woodworks, you know, if they don't put a solid effort, that might be more than enough to ensure they're not going to have a chance in this election coming up. I don't know what you have to say about that.
I want Marvel to call back in and contribute. I'm so tired and fed up of speaking about the opposition leader and this nonsense that I would love Marvel call in and save me from this, because you see, the thing is that I like to give credit where credit is due, but what credit can I give the opposition leader at this point?
Okay, we have Marvel back.
You know, thank you.
Caller, good morning, you're on the air.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
What I'm seeing with Price Martin there, they have over 70, how much money they have in US to convert into TT money. Why it is we have to take our like the little reserve we have for Trinidad and put it into PriceSmart? Why PriceSmart don't have their own money to convert? You know, these things is the money, the little bit of money that we have in Trinidad is going out to all these big conglomerates like them car company. I see them selling a lot of cars, and they say we have a lot of foreign exchange, right? Problem. We have a lot of foreign exchange problem. They're seeing all these big stores and them supermarkets, and them they getting money to buy the foreign goods, like goods outside. That's even what Trinidadians will eat, like the poor class of people will eat. You've seen all these expensive kind of food on the supermarket shelves, right? So why they don't stop all these things like that from coming in and use the foreign exchange to help the people who need the money? Mm-hmm. Because you can go in the bank and get 200 US money. You know, you're not getting money to do anything. If you want to bring in something, that's the next problem. They cut your credit card, they cut this, they cut that. So how you could survive in Trinidad? And the next thing, people hitting on camera, you know what, something? I'm glad at what she said, because too much of stupidness was going on. Maybe it happened in America, but when America do something, Trinidad love to follow suit, right? It had this, I was watching CNN and those programs, and they're telling these stories about these big men going into bathroom with little children, right? And you can't do them nothing because they say that there's a woman, so they have the right to go in toilet with a little girl or a little boy. how stupid that could be, right? She might know what she's saying, but it come out. I love people when they come out and say what they think. People might slam she for it, but I find it's a good thing for she to come out and say. People would bash you all kind of thing. The PNM would bash you because you know what? They had to play the game. Even so, Maduro, they're fighting for Maduro, the oil and everything. But I'm glad she come out because I wouldn't like my children to go to school, or my grandchildren to go to school, and you see a big stinking man walking in toilet with a little child, a little girl child, a little boy child. If them do something to them children, what they gonna say? They was a girl or they wanted, because that was the story coming out. They consented, you know. So I find it's right what Trump doing right now. Two genders. You don't like it? The hell was with you? Bye. Thank you.
All right, caller. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it will strike a chord with some Trinbagonians who have been following some of what's going on abroad. We have Dabadi waiting on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on there. Caller?
We didn't cut you off. You're here.
Yeah, we now got you.
No, I was on earlier.
Oh, because I think because we had another caller on.
I appreciate. I'm not just debating that. You know, I appreciate. No excuse. I always like when Keenan come on the program because he seems to be very objective in his point of view. I don't want to go back to the opposition leader's letter. I think it was all of the above as stated in Dr. Amy Brown's response. I think that the word that you used this morning is diplomatic. And regardless of what end of the totem pole you are, as a politician or as any professional, there must be some level of diplomacy in it. It's definitely not anybody on her side with any high level of intellect that would have written that foolishness. All right? I don't want to spend much time on that. I like the idea when we start talking about ideology of parties. You see, I'm not on the politics PNM or UNC this morning. You know, I'm just being on some of the points that Keenan rose and thinking about the ideology of the party and some of the innovativeness and entrepreneurial activities that need to come from either party for this country to be a better country. You know, what are some of the ideas? And it was mentioned that in 10 years, not even the government or the opposition could have actually come up with something to reduce crime. And that in itself might be a different kettle of fish. But when it comes to new ideas, we haven't heard anything from the opposition, and they are part of the government. When you fail a government, it's not just the PNM, you know, but it is also the opposition. And I am really looking forward, you know, to what the campaign trail is going to be like. And they don't just jump and say crime, 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 crime. And what are they going to put in their manifestos? Any of the political parties, I'm not talking about PNM, I'm not talking about UNC. I'm speaking about being patriotic. I'm speaking of we have. And folks, I would like to close with this one. I do not believe that our forex problem is as bad as that is portrayed. But there are persons who get forex, who want forex, and for their businesses, they do well. As a matter of fact, I think most of our forex probably goes out in the purchase of hydrocarbon, maybe the oil that we purchase going out. I could be wrong, but there might be other items that we do, consumables that we import on a regular basis. But guys, a wonderful program, you know, shown without Keenan, you know, that the program is not properly complete. And you always talk about your partner, you'll really make a good fit. And thanks for the opportunity for me being able to share my point of view with you all this morning. Thanks so much. You'll have a nice day.
Have a nice day, caller. Thank you very much. John, the foreign exchange programs. I think the caller made a good point in respect to the foreign exchange issue. There is foreign exchange insurance available, but it's only accessible by a certain few. I mean, the caller from Marvel made a point as it relates to PriceSmart. And PriceSmart has the US $70 million worth of foreign exchange. Sorry, worth of TT dollars that it cannot get US for. But the thing is, PriceSmart at this point, one would argue, can be deemed an essential service. Not necessarily everything, but it's still an essential service. PriceSmart is always packed. I've never gone to PriceSmart and seen it empty because you can get bulk items at cheap cost, but it's just all an effect, a knock-on effect.
The problem
So
is
what we're currently experiencing.
PriceSmart's business model is to import to sell to us groceries, right? We can't do it any other way right now. If they can't get foreign exchange to at least get their profits out of the country, or at least to pay off their suppliers, they're gonna close up shop.
And when people say support local, like buy this product, buy that product that has a local name on it, so it's locally owned. If you read the label, it's just it's made abroad, it's packaged abroad. In some instances, it's produced abroad and just bought in bulk and packaged down here. All that you have to bear in mind as well.
How local is local? We have Sanfan on the line, last caller for the day. Good morning, caller, you on here.
Good morning, Sean. Morning, Keita.
Morning.
Good morning.
You know, systemic failure is how you have to describe how the state apparatus is operating. With that issue with the Attorney General and the what you call it, the talk about the chief in that report that came out there about that issue with those 9 gentlemen who got that $20 million. That report talks about the system failing, and not the system failing, only the people that run the system. That is the same thing that had caused the that solar plant that they're doing in Savanette today. When the Prime Minister spoke about it, that it ended up costing more. BP ended up charging more for the project because of the EMA. It was the EMA, the same issue with the EMA that has that's what you call that thing, that library dry docking facility, that is still waiting on the EMA to get a CEC. That is 5 years delayed now. Problem is there are too many people that are in positions that are not doing their jobs and continue to not do their jobs because there is no consequence for their action. It's similar to when you have these joint select committee meetings, or these the other one, the other committee that they have meeting there. When you get the information and they come out and say what they have to say, and they are chastised sometimes, but there is no consequence. Those things happen, and there is no consequence for the individuals that are in these organizations. And that is the be all and end all of Trinidad and Tobago. Until that is changed and people are brought to heel for what they don't do, nothing is going to change in this country. Have a good day, guys.
Thank you
very much, Cole,
I
for
agree
that
with
point.
that 100%. Keith, I want to say, but I don't know if you want to respond first.
No, I fully very much agree with the caller. I mean, yes, we do blame politicians for their policies or lack thereof, their ideas, their plans and whatnot. Listen, at the end of the day, and I think, as I said, we always try to be as fair as possible. Politicians may have lack of ideas, policies, planning, etc., etc. If they do have a good idea, though, they still rely on public servants, members of the public service, to ensure that such ideas or plans are fully enacted and fully functional, and hopefully in an efficient way. But when that happens, it's an ultimate failure. The failure falls upon the minister or the politicians, etc. There's really the public service that has a lot to be blamed for a lot of failures in Trinidad and Tobago. And I'm not trying to be unkind, but I agree with the caller from San Fernando, because at the end of the day, what consequences do they have? People rush to get a government job because of the security associated with it, or the thought of the security associated with it, because they can simply sit in a position and take their sweet time and do whatever they want to do. And there are no consequences for it. You know, so as I said, Sean, I agree with the caller from San Fernando, because it's a direct failure of administration in trying to deal with these issues. There are no consequences for the heads. There are no consequences for the ones in between. And the biggest consequences, I think, for the ones at the bottom is probably a serious buff.
The thing is, where we can put the blame on the politicians is for allowing it to get this bad, the lack of oversight, right, in the long run. But that's the thing. This is systemic, and I think it's more widespread than we might even think, even if we think it's rampant in all corners, right? It might be wider and bigger than we may think. But more importantly, I think it's deeply rooted in the public service because it was allowed to fester for so long. This is bigger than any one administration, right? So I'm not going to say that fixing it is easy, but who is going to be the generation of politician? Which generation of politician? Because I don't want to lump the PNM as, you know, this PNM is the same as Manning's PNM, is the same as Eric Williams' PNM. Those are different generations, not entirely the same exact party. Which generation of politicians is going to be willing to actually deal with this? And I agree with Mr. San Fernando. This is why I said even before that to fix the country, I think where you start is to deal with a lack of accountability, the HR problems in the public sector. So the lack of accountability as well as the redundancy and unproductive workers. You have to deal with those things, right? You'll save cash which you could then use for the next thing that you need to try to fix. But more importantly, as you and Mr. San Fernando pointed out, you can actually then implement changes effectively and on time and not have all of this song and dance and rigmarole and ineffective implementation that we usually see, which, again, it's not all the politicians' fault, but they're the ones that we elect to oversee this, and it has been allowed to degenerate into what we have now. Not all public service workers, public sector workers are bad. Just always remember that. But this thing is way beyond what we could afford right now, right? We're like the family that was rich that still wants us waste money because we think we're rich. That's where we've reached in the life cycle of our nation.
So, it's not going to happen overnight for one government, one administration. It's not going to happen in 5 years.
Well, I have a question.
But if I actually see an effort taking place, if I see something actually happening, if I see a start, believe you me, it could be something that we should look forward to. At this time,
I have a question, Keaton. I have a question.
Listen,
here's the thing.
Go ahead.
I think that Trump was elected because it got so bad, they got fed up with essentially the traditional members of both parties. They looked at an outsider, a radical, and they said, we want him. For better or worse, we want him to be the sledgehammer to try to fix these problems fast because it got that bad. I think we might actually, our salvation...
Isn't that what Elon Musk is there to do?
Forget about that right now. Keaton, I think we might actually have a similar scenario where things might get so bad, we might elect some radical off-the-wall candidate that might not be good for us, right? And do you think that's possible to happen? Because one of my fears is that might be the only way to fix some of these things.
I'm reading here just some of these articles as per what is taking place and what is Trump's plans for business and administration in the United States. And perhaps maybe, Sean, perhaps maybe that hardline approach is what is needed. Perhaps.
I mean, it worked somewhat for crime in El Salvador, right? But
that case alone is incredible.
Those kind of aggressive tactics, they come with a lot of risks.
Who would be courageous enough to do something like that in Trinidad and Tobago, though?
Well, I mean, they already shoot on $200,000 to $350,000 bounties on prison officers' heads. You would, I mean, listen, it might have been more dangerous over there, right? So who knows? Who knows? I don't know what the unique set of circumstances might be necessary to get it done. But again, I'm not even sure if I like the cure. So that's why.
You know, I leave you with this question on that last part, right? Because it's not that I want to go all over the place, but you just spoke about the bounty. They say crime does not pay, right? That's the old saying, crime does not pay. How many people will be without food? How many people will be without housing if we had zero criminal activity in Trinidad and Tobago? I'm not using that as a justification, huh?
No, but it's a very real question.
All as a justification. Don't misinterpret it.
Yeah.
I'm asking that question because if a government really wanted to cut out crime, it also means that they're probably going to try and have to find ways of rehabilitating and putting these people back into society with the hope of having a job and an income to survive. Seems that they can't do either.
Keaton, if potentially 9 out of 10 criminals get away scot-free, arguably the return of investment is unfortunately a lot higher than we would like it to be. That's how I see it. Obviously, it is paying right now because they're opting in and they don't care about the risks. And we are not doing enough to make it, I guess, how to say it, de-incentivize crime, make it a situation where it's a lose-lose. It's not a lose-lose. Right now, it's a win-win. It's not even a win-lose. It's a win-win right now for most criminals because they're blatantly attacking agents of the state. So that's my answer. I think that's an unfortunate question that also needs to be considered. But with that said, folks, remember your allegiance to this republic. It's nice to be nice, especially on the roads. I didn't want to rant about a road situation this morning again. But stay safe. We will see you tomorrow, Keaton. Close out the show.
When all is said and done, though Sean and I may put you down in your damper sometimes, given the unfortunate circumstances we find ourselves in often enough, make today a good day. Today is a good day to have a good day. Make it happen for yourself. We'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color dry sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top